Welcome, everyone, to today's Explainer. We're going to be dissecting a classic imposter horror story from Honey Monday, just to understand exactly how it masterfully builds tension. We're looking at the anatomy of a scare here, specifically the chilling 1998 Shimla summer vacation. This isn't just a spooky tale. It's actually a brilliant study in pacing, environmental dread, and psychological manipulation. We're going to see exactly how the storyteller pulls it off piece by piece, so get ready.
Okay, let's dive right into this. What if the family you're visiting isn't your family at all? I mean, it's an incredibly chilling hook, right? It immediately sets the psychological stage for the terrifying journey these siblings are about to take. By planting this very specific seed of doubt right off the bat, the storyteller completely subverts our most basic human instinct, the safety of home and family. It primes us, as the audience, to actively look for cracks in an otherwise totally normal situation. So the story kicks off in 1998 with a 10-year reunion. We've got two siblings, 16-year-old Nisha and 13-year-old Aman, and they're traveling alone by train to the beautiful hill station of Shimla. This whole setup is really all about their immense, totally innocent excitement. Why? Well, because they're going to see their grandparents after a full decade, 10 whole years. They're unburdened, traveling without their parents for the very first time, and basically just expecting this warm, nostalgic family reunion. And their innocence here is actually a crucial narrative tool, because it completely blinds them at first to the horror that's quite literally waiting for them. But as soon as they arrive, that classic expectation versus reality really sets in. The kids expected warmth and comfort, right? But the reality they find is this isolated, wildly unmaintained property with peeling yellow walls, completely swallowed up by overgrown wild grass. And to top it all off, sitting out on the veranda is an eerie rocking chair, just gently moving back and forth with absolutely zero wind. It's this immediate, jarring visual shift from a happy summer vacation straight into an isolated nightmare. Right away, the storyteller uses this brilliant breadcrumb technique. They drop these glaring, immediate red flags that the overly excited kids just completely missed upon arrival. Notice these details. First, the grandparents are wearing heavy shawls, despite it being the absolute scorching summer heat. Second, there's this unsettling, total empty void in their eyes. And third, their smiles feel entirely fake and forced, like they're practically painted on. Now, because the kids are so overwhelmed with the joy of the reunion, they just ignore these physical anomalies. But for us, the audience, the alarm bells are definitely ringing loud and clear. The tread deepens significantly the moment they step foot inside the house. Almost immediately, the siblings detect this awful foul stench, something that strongly resembles rotting flesh. But the grandma, casually, almost cheerfully even, brushes it off. She tells them it's just cow dung blowing in from the fields. And guys, this is exactly how you establish environmental dread. The horror isn't just something they're looking at, it's literally permeating the very air they breathe, making the whole farmhouse feel completely toxic and inescapable. And this brilliantly illustrates the escalation of that dread. Just listen to this chilling warning from the grandfather, delivered right at bedtime. He says, "Many animals make noises here at night. Don't be scared and absolutely do not step out of the room." Okay, that isn't just a friendly heads up. That is a cage. By telling them to completely ignore outside sounds and stay locked away behind a closed door, the grandfather cements this deeply claustrophobic suspense. He's actively restricting their movement and their senses, basically maximizing their vulnerability in the dark. So over the next 2 days, we see this escalating isolation turn into a seriously suffocating routine. In the morning, the grandparents head out for the fields, leaving the kids entirely alone. In the afternoon, Nisha's stuck sketching the trees outside, which she notices are unnaturally, terrifyingly identical. And then at night, the grandparents return but utterly refuse to eat with the kids. Oh, and just to make matters even worse, the house's landline phone is conveniently broken. So the siblings are now geographically, socially, and technologically completely severed from the outside world. As that physical isolation really sets in, the narrative purposefully slows down to highlight some truly bizarre behavior and psychological dread. The grandparents refuse to eat any food at the dining table. The grandfather will just sit there and stare blankly at absolutely nothing for hours on end. And the grandmother? She just bursts into sudden, loud, completely unprovoked laughter that echoes through the whole old house. It is deeply unsettling because it breaks all the normal rules of natural human interaction. This is pure, creeping psychological dread. And then we have the fridge discovery. So Aman is wandering around the kitchen and he opens the refrigerator. Inside, there isn't normal food. There is only a single pot filled with a thick, red liquid. When he actually asks about it, the grandmother just laughs loudly and dismisses it as merely an old family recipe. It's such a grotesque, highly specific detail. The storyteller is using this to force our imagination to run wild, escalating the tension from just weird behavior to, okay, very potential danger. Which brings us to a really pivotal sequence, Nisha's midnight terror. The pacing here beautifully mirrors a classic jump scare buildup. First, she wakes up to a strange noise outside her door. Second, she sees a large, unnatural shadow pass under the door gap. Third, breaking her grandfather's one massive rule, she opens the door and is immediately hit by that overwhelming rotting stench again. And fourth, the ultimate escalation. She feels a sudden, ice-cold hand clamp down on her shoulder. Now, you'd totally expect a monster here, right? A demon? But here is the massive, wait, what? Pivot of the story. Nisha turns around in absolute sheer terror, and it's her grandmother. But she is deathly pale, wearing that exact same fake plastered smile, and she simply orders Nisha back to bed. This is so terrifying because it completely blurs the line between the familiar and the monstrous. The very person who is supposed to comfort her is acting exactly like the predator. The storyteller then goes on to prove that the terror isn't just confined to the dark. These afternoon hauntings happen in broad daylight. At 2 p.m., with the sun shining brightly, Eamon hears children playing inside the house. At 2:05 p.m., he clearly sees the shadow of a young boy. But at 2:10 p.m., when he searches, he finds the house is completely empty except for his sister. This is daylight horror at its absolute best. It shatters any illusion of safety the kids might have had during the sunlit hours. Basically, there is no safe time. From there, the supernatural elements start bleeding into reality, literally. Eamon is in the drawing room and he's looking at this large black and white portrait of his grandparents. Suddenly, he sees thick blood pouring directly from their eyes in the picture. He's completely paralyzed with fear, but when he frantically calls Nisha over to look just seconds later, the image has snapped completely back to normal. It's a classic gaslighting technique used in horror to make the characters, and honestly us, the viewers, question their own sanity. So where is this all heading? Well, all of these narrative threads, the horrific smell, the strict warnings, the intense isolation, those bleeding photos, they all start converging on one single location in the house, the forbidden first-floor room. It's the grandparents' bedroom, and it is always locked tight. The siblings finally realize that the overpowering stench of rot they keep trying to ignore, it's radiating directly from behind this very door. Driven by absolute terror and honestly just a desperate need for answers, the siblings finally act. The climax unfolds like this. First, they manage to find a bunch of keys downstairs. Then, they sneak upstairs and unlock that forbidden first-floor door. As it swings open, they're hit by an absolutely unbearable, suffocating stench of pure rot. Pacing themselves through the sheer horror of this moment, they slowly approach the bed, where two figures are lying. And guys, what they find on that bed is a truly grisly discovery. Two rotting corpses are lying side by side. But the storyteller gives us this highly specific, horrifying detail. One of the corpses is wearing a very specific piece of jewelry. Nisha looks closer, her heart absolutely pounding, and she recognizes it immediately. It is the exact locket that her Nani, her grandmother, always wears. So the crucial point here is that this confirms the horrifying truth: the dead bodies decomposing on the bed are their actual, real grandparents. Which leaves us with one ultimate jaw-dropping cliffhanger question. If those are their real grandparents dead on the bed upstairs, then who exactly are they living with downstairs? I mean, it's a masterful way to just pull the rug right out from under the audience and leave you absolutely desperate to know what happens next. The tension is perfectly crafted from beginning to end. What a ride. Thank you so much for joining me on today's Explainer, and I'll see you next time as we unravel more fascinating stories.